So if you haven't been living under a rock for the past 5 years, then you've probably come across the name Max Verstappen when watching Formula 1. Since his debut in 2015, he's gone from being one of the most hated people in motorsport to one of the most respected drivers around. And frankly, he's our only saving grace from the Mercedes dominance this year. While Verstappen hasn't actually been able to beat the Mercedes cars over the course of a season yet, he's definitely proved that he has what it takes to fight with the best, even when his teammates can't. There have been countless videos as to how Red Bull can't seem to find an adequate teammate for Verstappen, so I won't be covering that in this one, because frankly, it's a bit cliche at this point. So if I'm not going to spend the next 8 minutes talking about Helmut Marko's obsession with ruining people's careers, then what am I going to talk about? Well, after 5 years of being in F1, most high-level drivers would have collected their first world championship by now, but not Max Verstappen. Despite proving to the world that he's got the pace to win races and take poles, he's never quite been up there with the Mercedes cars for championship fights. Of course, that's not Verstappen's fault, but regardless, I wanted to spend this video trying to answer the question, is it too late for Max Verstappen to win a world championship? Okay, I know that's a very bold claim to make considering the fact that he's only 23, but it's definitely something that needs considering, as although he hasn't really had a shot at being in a title fight yet, he's always been there or thereabouts. And remember, the title is a question, not a statement. So without too much needless waffle, let me begin, as always, with his junior career. It's pretty common knowledge among F1 fans that Max Verstappen is the son of former F1 driver Jos Verstappen. While Jos hardly indulged in much success in Formula 1, he brought his son one of the best gifts that he could have given him: experience. Every time Max Verstappen is doing well in a wet race, the commentators manage to slip in the fact that his father used to take him karting in the rain, with slicks on, and ask him to find the grip. Granted, strapping your children to 70-mile-an-hour death machines with no grip is a practice that's generally frowned upon in today's society, but hey, Max didn't die, and that's the main thing. I guess you could say that Verstappen was lucky that his father was an F1 driver, as it gave him both money and contacts, both of which no doubt allowed him to be able to negotiate his way onto karting tracks with slicks on, even from an early age. Despite his father's questionable attitude to safety, Verstappen proved that he was not a force to be reckoned with in karting, winning a multitude of different championships such as the Belgian Minimax Championship, Dutch Minimax Championship, WSK World Series, WSK Euro Series, WSK Master Series, and so on. You get it. He had something special. After having won pretty much everything in karting, Verstappen moved on to the Florida Winter Series in 2014, where he took 5 podiums, 3 poles, and 2 wins across the 12 races to finish 3rd overall. After having competed in the Florida Winter Series, Verstappen moved on to Formula 3 in the same year, competing in the Formula 3 European Championship. He once again finished 3rd overall, with his arch nemesis Esteban Ocon taking the title. During this season, 16-year-old Verstappen took 6 back-to-back wins across the rounds in Belgium and Germany, which catapulted him from an average mid-pack driver to a proper title contender. On top of his success in Formula 3, Verstappen also won the Zandvoort Masters race and finished 7th in the Macau Grand Prix. Come 2015, and Verstappen was so well adjusted with racing cars that Red Bull signed him to drive for the Toro Rosso team full-time. This would make him the youngest ever driver to start an F1 race at 17 years and 166 days. The FIA saw this as such a travesty that they had to make changes to the super license rules to ensure that something like this didn't happen again. I mean, in most countries, Verstappen would still be considered a child, so allowing him to race wheel-to-wheel with adults at upwards of 200 miles an hour wasn't a good look, to be honest. The idea of allowing someone so young and potentially reckless to drive a Formula 1 car always had potential drawbacks, and this came to a head when Verstappen crashed into the back of Romain Grosjean's Lotus into Monaco's Saint-Devote corner, before continuing into the barriers at a ridiculous speed. Of course, the FIA weren't just going to let this slide, so they handed Verstappen a 5-place grid penalty for the next race for causing a collision. However, it was from this race that Verstappen began to prove his worth in the Toro Rosso car, regularly finishing in the points and scoring the career best finish of 4th at both the US Grand Prix and the Hungarian Grand Prix. At the FIA prize giving at the end of the year, Verstappen won the Rookie of the Year, Personality of the Year, and Action of the Year, which served as a pretty good reason to silence all the critics who considered him to be Satan's offspring at the time. Little did these people know that 2016 was to be the year where Max Verstappen truly proved how good he was as a driver. The 2016 season began for Max Verstappen in the same Toro Rosso team that he'd been driving for in the previous year, coupled with the same teammate in Carlos Sainz as well. The first 4 rounds of the championship got off to a strong start for the 18-year-old, picking up points in 3 of them but retiring from the 4th. Despite his lack of experience in F1, Red Bull decided to take a punt and sign him to drive alongside Daniel Ricciardo for the remainder of the 2016 season. and he's remained in Red Bull to this day. On his first ever race for Red Bull, Verstappen took advantage of what was a nightmare of a race for Mercedes, and made it to the checkered flag in first place, making him the youngest ever Formula 1 winner at the age of 18 years and 228 days. So at this point in his career, Max Verstappen held the record for the youngest ever F1 driver and the youngest ever F1 winner. Surely the jewel in the crown for him would be for him to be the youngest ever world champion. Well, I'm sorry to all the Orange Army out there, but Verstappen's already lost his chance to break that record. While he's still younger than the age that Vettel was when he won his first world championship, he'll be too old by this time next year, which is the earliest he could realistically be the world champion. But hey, this is F1, and you never know, Mercedes might yet get disqualified from the championship for doing something, I guess. And seeing as Verstappen's basically sealed third place in the Drivers' Championship, he'd be in first place if both Mercedes drivers do indeed get disqualified. However, this is probably just wishful thinking, so let's just all agree that Verstappen probably isn't going to break that record, unless he's got a few stacks of fake birth certificates to pull out if and when he does become a world champion. Anyway, Verstappen continued to show his alien-like pace at Red Bull for 4 more years, which brings us up to today, where he's made mincemeat of both his teammates for reasons that we can only speculate about, but as I said in the beginning of this video, that's a topic for another time. So let's get to the main question of this video. Is it too late for Verstappen to become a world champion? And the short answer to that question is no. But for those of you that aren't just here to learn about Max Verstappen's F1 career and then hear me bluntly tell you that he can still win a world championship, let's actually discuss this, shall we? Firstly, Formula 1 is one of the most unpredictable sports that exists right now, despite what some people might tell you. Just because Lewis Hamilton has the fastest car, it doesn't mean that he'll win every race. Just because Verstappen doesn't have the fastest car, it doesn't mean he won't win any races. Every F1 race is a new opportunity to prove your name, and not even a driver as experienced as Kimi Raikkonen can be expected to know everything about every track. And of course, we haven't yet been able to see how Max Verstappen copes when he's in a full-on championship fight. As we've seen so far, he's prone to making mistakes in high-pressure situations, and he sometimes comes across as a bit too aggressive when he frankly doesn't need to be. That having been said, we don't know if he'll be so reckless when he actually has something to lose, so we can't claim that he'll never win a world championship because of this. So no, it's not too late for Verstappen to win a world championship. Granted, he's definitely thrown away a few opportunities in his time, but these have never been the deciding factor in him not winning a championship thus far. With the impending rule changes in 2022 coupled with the budget cap, most people are talking about how the big teams like Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes will be closer to the rest of the field. But if Red Bull get these regulations right just like they did back in 2010, then 2022 could be Verstappen's year. That having been said, you can't win anything without an engine in the back of your car, which is currently a pressing issue for Red Bull in 2022. If Red Bull do manage to secure a decent, reliable engine for the new regulations, then I have no doubt that with the design expertise of Adrian Newey and his team, they could be fighting for the championship. But if Red Bull get it wrong, then it's now or never for Max Verstappen. Or he could just move to Mercedes. But yeah, that's about it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed it, then leave a like on it and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later.